Hi there, and welcome to Inking a Drawing in Inkscape Part 2. So in this video we are going to finish inking our character here, and we are going to do the line work and produce a finished drawing. So let's get started. So this is where we left off in the first video. What we are going to want to do is make sure that snap function is turned off. We want to have our fill and stroke menu open. And let's not forget our control zoom to zoom in and out. So we're going to move on to a little bit more of the detail work today. So first of all, we are going to work on the lines for the eyes, the lines for the mouth, the shading, and the lines for the nose. So we're going to give them some facial features today. So let's get started with that. First of all, let's start with the nose shading. So we're going to create the shading for the nose in the same way that we did all the drawings for the solid shapes of the face. So we're going to give a slight downward curve to this. And we're going to curve this shape just a little bit to give us this shading pattern here. Actually, let's tweak this a little bit. Give it a little softer curve here. Yeah, I think that'll work. And so now let's fill that. And we're going to fill it with our shading color here. And we're also going to go to stroke paint, and we're going to turn off our stroke, and we'll drop that right into place. Okay, and now let's follow that up with the line work for the nose. So we're just going to create this line, and to end it we'll just double click that line. Double click, and we'll give it that shape that we're looking for along the lower part of the nose here. And let's do the same thing over here. So these lines are actually pretty short. Let's get those in there. And there was a slight inward curve there. Something like that. Okay, now these nostrils, I think I'm going to smooth this. So these nostrils, I'm actually going to do them with a solid shape rather than a line. So I'm going to clip this out, and this may look a bit odd. It looks like we're creating a line, but we're not. We're creating a filled shape because we're closing it up here. So I've gone back to start. You won't realize what's happened until you come in here with your Edit Paths by Nodes tool, and you realize that indeed we do have two different points here. Something like that. And just to make this easy, I'm going to duplicate this and flip it. So I'm using this mirror tool, and then I'm just going to reshape it a little bit to fit my needs over here. So let's see what we've got here. Well, that looks pretty good, but maybe it's a bit too long. Yeah, I think that will do. Okay. And I'm going to take these two objects, and I'm just going to turn the stroke paint off just to make them a little thinner. Okay, and once we get to this point with the line work, I'm going to tweak these lines a little bit later. So for now, I'm just using normal lines here. Let's get those in place. Zoom in. Now we may have to tweak that shading just a little bit to make sure that it fits in place here. There we are. Now that looks pretty good. Okay, so now let's move on to the line work for the mouth. So again, I'm just using my Bezier Curves tool. Double click to get that line shape that I'm looking for. That looks pretty good. Let's move that one over there. You can see that it's pretty off center. And I'm going to come in here, and I think for this one I'm going to use a solid shape for the shading. So I'm just going to build this in and then reshape it a bit to fit my needs. And there we go. And I'm going to match that one to the shade of my nose shading here. And I think I'll just turn off the outlines for that too, just to get a better look at what I'm creating here. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Let's continue on with our line work. So I'm going to add the lines over the eyes, around the eyes, under the eyes, okay? So let's get started with that. So I'm just going to double click here. So this may not match our eyes perfectly, but that's not a big worry for us, because what you'll see is that I'm going to actually turn off the outline for my eyes, and that gives us a bit more room to work here. And the second thing is I'm going to be thickening up these lines just a bit, and when I do that, it's going to give us a little bit more of a room to make mistakes. So I'm going to duplicate this line, and I'm going to flip it using the mirror, horizontal mirror here. And since I duplicated my eyes, this should be a perfect fit. And there we are. Okay, so there's my upper line. Now I'm going to do these lower lines in the same way. So let's take that over. And see if that fits. That's a pretty close fit. Let's just tweak it a tiny bit. Make sure that we have a good fit there. Again, as I said, we're going to thicken these lines up, so it's not the end of the world if it doesn't quite fit perfectly. Let's duplicate that, and we'll reflect it, and it should again be a perfect match. Okay, so far so good. Now let's move on to these secondary lines up here. Nice and simple. So let's grab that one. Well, I think I'm okay with that. And this one. So I'm not duplicating them this time because my second line is a bit shorter than my first line. They're not exactly the same. I'm just going to tweak this a tiny bit. Don't like the way it doesn't follow the shape of the eye. There we are. Okay, let's see what we've got so far. Alright, so we've got the basics of our line work done here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how to edit these lines a little bit in order to change or vary the thickness of the lines. So let's get in there and do that right now. So this is going to be done through a path effect. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up Path menu and we're going to choose Path Effects. And on this path effect we are going to add something called Power Stroke right here. We're going to add that. Now if you're using your edit paths by nodes, what you're going to notice is that we now have these three pink diamonds that appear here. Now the middle pink diamond is the central thickness of that line. This one is the thickness of this end, and we want this to taper off, so I'm going to keep that end really, really small. You may need to zoom in order to actually make this taper, but we're going to keep that really, really thin at the end. And what we've done is we've created a tapered stroke, something with some varied thickness. And I'm going to do the same thing with this line. So I'm coming in here, I'm going to add, so over here by my path effects, I'm going to hit plus. I'm going to add Power Stroke. Again, I'm going to thicken that line. Then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to taper that line towards the end. And the same thing over here. I'm going to have a look and see my original picture if I've overdone that line. I don't think that I've overdone the line. So I am fairly happy with this. Yeah. Okay. So let's go over here and do the same thing. In fact, I think that I want this to be an exact duplicate. So I think I'm going to just delete that one. I'm going to duplicate this one and move it over. So let's duplicate it and reflect it. And we should have a perfect fit here. Let's just zoom in there and make sure that we get it right. Okay, that's looking pretty good. And now let's do a Power Stroke on this one. Power Stroke. Edit our path. We're just going to thicken this one up just a bit. I think I want to vary this a little bit, so I'm not going to make it exactly taper at the tip. I think I'm going to make it taper way back here. Give us a little more variation in this one. Alright, I like that. Okay. So now we're going to Power Stroke this bottom line as well. So let's get to work on that. So we're going to select it. We're going to add a path effect, Power Stroke. We're just going to thicken this one up a bit. And we're going to taper this down towards the tip. And taper this one down towards the tip. Now I can see that my line is just a tiny bit off, so I'm going to correct that while I'm here. There we are. Now if we wanted this thing to taper to a perfect point, if we were to enable snapping, that would actually snap right to that tip. But I'm not really that concerned about it. There, I think I'm pretty happy with that. Alright, yes, I like it. And now the same thing here. We're going to select our line, we're going to add our path effect, power stroke. Same thing, we're going to taper that. We're going to add some thickness, and we're going to taper it towards the tip to give us that variety in our lines, that variation that makes it look more like a natural drawn illustration. Oh, There we are. Okay, that is looking a lot better. We're definitely going to have to do some work in the details in these eyes later. This is pretty flat. But let's go ahead and do our power stroke to our nose. And we're going to do something a little bit different to the mouth here. So, power stroke. And we're going to thicken this point up towards this end here. We really want to emphasize this end of our line a little more than the other end. And we're going to do the same thing over here. Power stroke. I'm going to thicken this guy up. We want that nice taper towards the tip. And down here as well. Now we don't need to worry about getting that shading to exactly line up. In fact, it may look a little more natural if we don't worry too much about that. So I see I've got a little bit of a line up above here. And I think I'm going to add that in. So I'm going to add it in as a, I think I'll add it in as a line. I'm not 100% sure about that decision, but you know, it's a project. So let's add a path effect. We'll add the power stroke. We'll just thicken that up a bit. And we really want to taper this thing off. We want it to almost disappear towards the end. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. We just want to emphasize the top of that nose just a bit more. I think it gives our character a little more of a childlike quality. Now I don't like how dark that is, so I think I'm going to change that to the color. Actually, we're going to have to do path, object to path on it first, and then we will change that fill color to our shading color. And I think that's going to look a little bit better. Yeah, I think I like that. So let's work on this mouth a little bit. So the mouth, it doesn't taper to a point. We've got kind of a little sort of ball effect here. And so power stroke's not going to really give us what we're looking for. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the thickness of this stroke. And I'm going to round my ends. And then I'm going to do path, object to path, stroke to path on that, sorry. And what that's going to do is this line then becomes a path. Okay, now I want to play with the thickness of this thing a little bit. So I can do that by dragging in on these points a bit. And I can give it a bit more of a natural sort of hand-drawn line look by playing with that thickness just a bit and playing with that curve. Now, I'm not looking for perfection. In fact, quite the opposite. I'm looking for something that looks a bit more natural and hand-drawn. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, I think I like that. Okay. I almost see a bit of shading in here that maybe I'll do, but I think I want to emphasize this with an extra line. So let's go ahead and put a line in here, and this one we will do a power stroke on, and we'll just emphasize the top of this shading here. So let's add a path effect, power stroke, and we'll just thicken the center of this, and we're going to taper that right off to the tip. And taper this one right to the tip. And we'll just emphasize that shading just a bit. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. This is coming along nicely. Now we've got some more work to do with these eyes. We've definitely got some work to do with these ears and some lines in the hair. It's quite a lot of work that we're looking at, along with the freckles here. So let's start working on these eyes a little bit. So I think I want to create more of a depth to these things. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to do two things. I'm going to put two circles in here, and I'm going to put a lighter color and a darker color gradient on this. So let's start out with the fill. I'm just going to make a duplicate. I'm going to play around a bit with this. I'm going to darken this up quite a bit, and I'm going to add a linear gradient. I'm going to put the transparent part of my gradient near the bottom and the solid part near the top. Something like this. Okay. And then I'm going to lower that down a bit. So I want to just keep lowering this until it goes underneath. Oh yeah, I think that's a big improvement already. I'm not 100% on that. In fact, I think my pupil might be a little small. So I think I'm going to enlarge this. Now if I want to keep this in the same spot, but I want to make it bigger, what I want to do is press the Control and the Shift button at the same time, and this will increase in place. Okay? So I think rather than try and recreate this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of what I have here, and I'm just going to duplicate this and take it over. So I just duplicated that, and I'm going to bring that right over and drop that in place. And I think that's a lot easier. So I think that's helped us a lot. I'm still not 100% happy with those eyes, but definitely it's an improvement over what we had before. So let's move along now to some more of our line work. So what I'm going to do is at this point I'm going to get rid of these outlines here. So I'm going to select my ears, my face, hair, eyebrows, but not this stuff, because this stuff is lines already. What I'm going to go to, I'm going to click on stroke paint, and I'm going to hit the X, and that's going to get rid of, oh, I missed the ears, and that's going to get rid of all the outlines. So at this point what I want to do is I want to draw in some of these outlines just to give it more of a natural feel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add some of these lines in here. So I'm trying to follow the original path, but I don't need to be super exact, because as you've seen we're going to be thickening up these lines a bit and playing with them a tiny bit, and when we thicken them, they're going to take up a little bit more space. So we don't need to be quite so careful. Something like that, I think. And now we're going to add a power stroke to that, just like we've been doing. Plus power stroke, and whoa, that was an unexpected consequence. So let's see if we can deal with this. That does not look like it's functioning. Woo. Let's undo back out of here and try this again. I'm just going to adjust this line, and then I'm going to add my power stroke again, and we'll see how that goes. Wow, it is not liking that line. Well, sadly, I think I may need to redraw this line. I'm really not sure what's going on here. But I think our easier way would just be to redraw this line. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, let's try that power stroke again. And hopefully wow, this is not really giving me the result that I'm looking for. Ah, we've got an extra point here. Alright, let's try that again. Okay, this is more what I was expecting. Alright, so we're going to thicken this line up a little. We're just going to have it taper off at the end. But we don't want to totally lose that line. I like the way that it sort of comes in on the other end. Okay. Now, if you can't quite get that line the way that you want it, we can still edit this line. So if we click on this and we want to edit it as a path, all we have to do is click Object to Path. And that's going to get locked into its current position. And it gives me all these extra points here. So at this point, if I want to add some more variation to this, I can just come in here and by hand I can add a little bit of basically we might think of as mistakes, but something that's going to give us a little more of a hand-drawn effect. This little bit of extra variation is going to give us much more of a hand-drawn look. You can see that it's much more illustrative. It indicates the, that an artist's hand has done this and not a machine. I'm just going to delete some of these extra points using my delete button, and I'm going to pull this in a little bit farther. So none of this stuff is locked in stone. You can always still mess with this stuff even once it's been created. So I think I like the way that turned out, and I'm going to go ahead and do one on the other side. Hopefully we'll have a little less issues with this one. So I'm just double clicking to end that line. Since we're not closing this as an object, we need to double click it to end. Okay, and I'm going to apply the power stroke to that. Pull this one down here. Thicken this one up. And I think everything has gone quite well with this one, thankfully. Okay. Yeah. all except for this little tip here. So I think I'm just gonna grab this pink point and I'm gonna bring it right down here so that I get that good tapered end. There we are. Okay. So let's move on here. Maybe we'll do this line right here. Kind of like the look of that one. I think I'll come all the way down to this point. And I'm just going to curve that into shape. And I'm going to apply the power stroke to that. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, I think I like that. We'll grab that line, bring it over, we'll throw that onto the ear and see how that looks. Okay, it will require a slight adjustment to my ear shading, but I'm okay with that. Yeah, I like that. So we're getting down to it now, though. Any of these lines that we decide to add are just going to increase the detail level. Now here, if we want to go all the way around the ear, what we could do is we can come in here and we can turn the stroke paint on and just thicken that up a little bit. And that's going to give us a very solid outline, which in this case I think works. But as before, if we want to give some variation here, what we can do is, this is a two-step process, unfortunately. We can't just edit the stroke as it is. But what we can do is we can make we can turn this stroke off on our ears. We can make a duplicate of the ears, and we can turn on that outline. And then we can do path, stroke to path. Okay? Now what's happened is that the outline itself has become a path. So we can lower that down under the face. So I'm just going to click my way down through here until it gets underneath of the face. There we are, underneath the face and hair. And then I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to edit this a little bit. So what I can do is I can come in here and just tweak my path a little bit in order to give it that hand-drawn look. So it's just going to give me a bit of variation on the thickness, which looks a little more natural. So I'm deleting some of these points. I'm just clicking on them and deleting them because we have quite a few points here, unfortunately, that appeared. And then I'm going to adjust the thickness of some of these lines until I'm happy with that bit of variation that we have there. There, I think I like that. So that's a sort of shortcut to getting our full outline. And we could do that with our outline of the face as well. Most certainly I think I'm going to do that with my eyebrows here and possibly with the outline to the hair. So let's give that a try. I'm still unsure if I want an outline here on my eye or not. We do have quite a dark ring there, but I'm afraid that if I add an outline, it's going to be too much. I mean, I may be able to blur the outline a bit, but I think it really changes the look of the image, maybe not in a good way. But I think I am going to go with the outline on the eye there. But I'm going to do what we did with the last one, and I'm going to make a duplicate. I'm going to duplicate this. And then I'm going to turn on the outline. And I'm going to do path, stroke to path. And then I'm just going to get in here and give it a little bit of variation. And feel free to add some extra points if that's what you want to do. So for example, if I add a point in here, I can vary it some more. But I think that's going to give us, again, just a bit more of a custom illustration look. So let's duplicate that. And we're going to turn on the stroke. And we're going to do stroke to path. And I'm just going to get in here and vary the width of that path just a bit. Just to give it a bit more of a hand-drawn look. Alright, there we go. So, I think that's looking pretty good, actually. I may still play with the colors a bit, but let's keep going with the line work for now. We still have a lot of line work remaining. I want to do some outlines on these t-shirts, but I think I'm going to, again, shortcut that by making a duplicate and turning on the outline. And let's thicken that outline up a bit. And then I'm going to do path, stroke to path. I'm going to lower that down just a bit. You can use the page down button for this if you wish. And then I'm going to get in there and I'm going to adjust my thickness a little bit on that outline, just to, again, give us a bit of emphasis and a bit of a custom hand-drawn look here. It's a little bit of extra time, but I think that it's worth it to get a real, more natural looking illustration. There we are. Maybe this span's a bit long. There. Again, a quick little shortcut to doing our outline. And we're going to do the same thing here with our white t-shirt, but we are going to have this outline on the neck. So let's make a duplicate of our t-shirt here. And we'll thicken up that stroke. And we'll do path, stroke to path. We're just going to lower that down with the page down button. And I'm going to play around with the thickness and the angle of this line here. Just to give us, a slightly less than perfect line. We've got a kind of point going on there. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with that, but I think I like it. May even try to get the same thing going over here. Oh, we've gone a little bit off of our drawing. There we go. Oh, a little bit too narrow here as well. Now the last thing that I would like to do is I think I want to get rid of the bottom of this. And since we did stroke to path, what we can do is we can actually just cover the bottom of our path here. Select our outline, and we're going to do a path difference on it. And that's just going to cut this little bottom section out. Just fix up my line here. Since our t-shirt is white, I kind of wanted to have that fade out at the bottom. So I'm going to go back to my original white section. I'm going to turn off that outline. And what we're going to end up with is that our t-shirt just kind of fades out at the bottom. I'm not sure if that's a good look. We'll see. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to turn off the outlines on my arms here, and rather than doing the quick and dirty outline, I'm going to draw this one in just because I want that tapered look again. Power stroke that, and we'll get that a bit of a tapered look. There we are. I like that. Same thing over here. Power stroke. Use our path editor. There we go. Okay, let's just zoom back out again. That's coming along very well. Right, so I've been putting off the hard part. Of course, the hard part is going to be the hair. So let's just wrap up this other ear and the neck, and we'll have to get to work on the hard stuff. So I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to add in my outline here. As I did with the other ear, I'm just going to, actually, I'm going to bend this line in place here. I'm going to add the power stroke to it. We'll see how that goes. I think that's perfect without any adjustments. Maybe too strong. I'll have to look at the other ear. I kind of like it. Maybe I'll make this one a bit stronger. Okay. Yes, I do like that. So far, so good. All right, at this point, I need to do this neckline here. There's no avoiding it. And I'm going to have to put in some of these lines here. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go to about here somewhere and just see if I can curve this thing properly. So I've decided I don't really want the full line in one. I kind of want to make it look like it's been through multiple lines. So let's add a power stroke there. Keep this one a little bit thin. I need to zoom in there. Let's see, looks pretty good. And maybe I'll just cheat and duplicate that one and reflect it and just see if we can work with that. As you can see, I do have to adjust it a little bit, but still easier than making a new line. I'm going to need a new point here. There we go. That looks pretty good. And now I think I'll just draw a little quick connector here. We'll see how that works out. I'll apply the power stroke to that one too. Just give it a little bit of variation there. That's gonna, give it that natural look. Alright, there we go. We're almost done here. So this is where we are so far. And I think it's looking pretty true to the original. So let's get in here and start doing some more detail work with the hair. Been putting it off for a while now. Maybe we'll start with this line right here. So it's the same story. We're just going to our two ends. We're going to bend this into shape. Not a big difference. We're going to add the power stroke. And we're going to thicken this up. To give us some natural looking lines here. Let's pull that over there. And we may have to do a little adjustment, but it may be that we just need to drop this down to the hair level. Okay, that's a good start. We've got quite a bit of work to do here. And I'm kind of torn. I mean, I may go with a dark brown for this rather than a black. I think might look better. We'll have to just test it out and see. I think we definitely want this line right here. So at this point, we're really dealing with some tedious line work here. I'm not sure you want to watch me do all of this. So maybe we can skip ahead. So let's power stroke this. Okay, and I think that if the lines don't match up exactly, that's not so bad. You may find that it gives it a little more character if they don't exactly match perfectly. Okay, so I'm going to pause this recording. I'm going to move on and get a little farther in my line work, and then we'll wrap it up.